Well, hello and welcome to episode 111 of Insights with Joe Pane. I'm your host, Joe. Hopefully, you're doing great. As of the time of the recording of this particular podcast, which is December 29, 1995, my God, 2025, dear me. I just can't believe how fast the year's gone. And I know that we say this every year. I was just sharing with a friend of mine the other day how it feels like Christmas has arrived about 2 or 3 months early this year. But here we are about to hop into this exciting new year of 2026. I can't believe I said 1995. That is just mind blowing. Anyway, so 2026. And what I wanted to share with you here as we head into this new January period going into this new year is I want to share with you what I believe in the soul of my souls, one of the most crucial gifts that you and I can give ourselves for 2026, or certainly this is a gift that we've already given ourselves, but we can continue to evolve and expand. And I'll get to what that gift is in a moment. First of all, I want to open today's chat, or today's insight, this particular episode, with a wonderful quote from one of my heroes, a lady called Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was like she worked in the palliative care space. She was famous for a book called On Death and Dying. And she was an expert in end-of-life transition. And this quote is, I'm not sure which book it's from, but anyway, I thought I'd share this with you because this sets the scene for what I want to share with you here today. She said, and it's a bit of a long quote, so bear with me. She said here, "How do geese know when to fly to the sun? Who tells them the seasons? How do we humans know when it's time to move on? As with the migrant of the birds, or the migration of the birds, so surely with us there is a voice within, if only we would listen to it, that tells us certainly when to go forth into the unknown." I think I'm going to repeat that quote. How do geese know when to fly to the sun? Who tells them the seasons? How do we humans know when it's time to move on? As with the migration of birds, so surely with us there is a voice within that if only we would listen to it, that would tell us most certainly when to go forth into the unknown. And this is what I want to talk about today, is this voice within and the gift of the unknown. The unknown, so embracing uncertainty, going into a space or a place or an experience that we've never experienced before, or certainly the most profound level of uncertainty is when we're experiencing something that has no reference points for us. In other words, we've got zero experience in this new space, whatever that new space is, whether it's in the relationship space, the career space, or whatever it might be. And one thing that I've found for sure is that in going into the unknown is how we fast track, how we get to introduce ourselves to aspects of ourselves that we didn't even know existed before. Or in other words, how we get to connect with aspects of ourselves that we had no idea even existed. To truly get to know yourself is to observe how you respond to situations that are grossly unfamiliar or are scary or are racked in pressure and stress. Now, obviously, we don't want 2026 to be riddled and racked with stress and pressure. That's not what this is about. But what I'm saying is, by listening to that voice within helps us realize our deepest desires. In the emotional fitness formula, there's 5 key focus areas in the emotional fitness formula. One of those key areas is values. And in my work, I define a value as our emotional compass. And this emotional compass is designed to point us in the general direction to where we can discover, uncover, and realize our deepest desires, and to express those deepest desires out into the world. In other words, what makes our heart sing, what makes our soul sing, what gives us that extra lift. And this is really, really crucial when it comes to the most crucial gift that we can give ourselves. And I'll jump to that right now so I can talk about that even more deeply and even more expansively. And the most crucial gift that you and I can continue to give ourselves in 2026, or for some of you listening to this, it might be the first time, the crucial gift is the gift of self-trust. Now, that gift of self-trust there is nothing more important than that, because we might say, well, what about self-love? What about self-respect? And all those self-love and self-respect are immensely important. But if you reverse engineer that and take self-trust away, I think it's impossible to love oneself if you don't trust yourself. It's nigh impossible to respect yourself if you have no self-trust. So let's have a look at this. Let's dive into this a little bit deeper. So one thing that I've found is that what's led me to the life that I have right now, I'm not here to sit here to say, oh, my life's great and this is how it's all happened, but I want to share with you that for a long time now, I've been listening to that whisper, to that voice, to that aspect of us that is guiding us on this incredible journey called life. And I remember the first time I listened to this voice was when I was 2.5 years into my career. So I'd finished, I'd invested 4 years of my life majoring in psychology and sociology at uni. I got my degrees and all that kind of stuff. And then I was fortunate enough in the 1990s, maybe that's why I said 1995 to open this podcast. And I was fortunate enough in the 1990s to actually get a job that was related to my degree. I remember so many of my colleagues back in the mid-90s in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, the job market was really tough. To try to get a job that was related to your degree was quite challenging. And somehow I landed an interview with a company that was called Vocational Rehabilitation Services, and VRS for short. And they had a massive contract with Ford Motor Company. In fact, Ford Motor Company was their one and only client because it was such a huge contract that all of their resources were dedicated to servicing the manufacturing aspect of the Ford Motor Company, where the Ford Falcon was produced over in a place called Broadmeadows back in the 90s and into the early 2000s. Anyway, long and the short of it is I got a job there as a rehabilitation counselor, and it was a rude awakening and introduction into the real world that seemed like the real world back then, where I was fresh out of academia, green and innocent and ignorant, and suddenly I'm introduced into the world of toxic agendas. The environment was awful. I was dealing with multiple agendas. I was trying to help. My job, in essence, was to get people or help people who were injured to get back to some kind of meaningful work, so they felt like they were contributing to something. And a lot of these people were genuinely struggling with whatever injury that they had that was work related, that is. But I didn't know that, and I got introduced to a word called malingerer. I never knew that this word malingerer existed. And I discovered that a malingerer is someone who is faking their injuries so they can take advantage of the work cover benefits so they can still get paid whilst they're not actually working. And in excess of well over half of my caseload was full of these malingerers, and I had no idea. Then I had to deal with the agenda of the area manager. I had to deal with the agenda of the general manager. I had to deal with the agenda of the medical center, the shop steward, the on-site insurance company. It was so multi-layered and complex, and I had no idea what I was doing. And soon before I realized, within a matter of months, that whether I showed up for this job or whether I didn't, it made no difference. My role was simply fulfilling a legal requirement of the Ford Motor Company had to fulfill. So I was basically just a plug-in to tick the box to say, hey, we've got on-site rehab counselors to help us with these issues. But in all reality, the job didn't actually exist in the pragmatic, real, meaningful way. I feel the stir of that as I share this with you inside. I remember the feelings of when this became obvious to me, how depressing this was and how insignificant I felt. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because this was I didn't know this at the time, but this led to the first time where I had to listen to the voices within. I had to listen to what my heart was saying. I had to listen for the first time to something within. Now, for most of us, we get brought up, and I'll speak for myself, because obviously, whoever it is that's listening, whoever you are listening and watching this, if you're watching this on YouTube or listening on some kind of podcast platform, is that I know nothing about your life and where you've come from, or maybe I do, I don't know, but I'll speak for myself, and hopefully you can relate and translate to whatever is of use to you from what I'm going to share with you about my life experience. And that is that I have found that as I was brought up through my teenagehood into my 20s, I was pretty much reliant on trusting others, reliant on being told what to do. Like as a kid, you're at school, so you're doing what the school asks you to do. You got the exams and all the different systems and processes that you have to go through. And when it comes to uni, I had to, obviously you're navigating the course and the program, and you're doing what you're told there. My parents were telling me what to do, and what I mean by that is that they were, nudging me quite strongly to go down the university path back in the 1990s, because I wasn't someone that was really particularly handy with my hands in terms of practical skills. And back then it was pretty simple. It was either get a trade, get an apprenticeship, or go to uni kind of thing. They were kind of like the two main pathways that I was aware of anyway. The entrepreneurial pathway I didn't even know existed back in the mid 90s. So anyway, I basically going into my 20s, all the way pretty much deep into my 20s, and into my, sort of heading toward 30 years of age, I was used to being told what to do. I was reliant on the good faith in others, advice and opinions, and follow what they say. And so with that comes no self-trust. With that comes an overbearing or a exaggerated reliance on the good opinions of others who are giving you their advice of what you should do and shouldn't do. And so that's how I'd lived my life. And here I was, 2.5 years into a career at Ford Motor Company that was a complete destroyation of my spirit, where I realized that whether I showed up or whether I didn't show up made no difference. And that, as I just said a moment ago, my role was fulfilling a legal requirement. It wasn't even a real job. It was so awful to realize that. And so I remember a significant moment when I was walking through the cafeteria of Ford Motor Company in Broadmeadows, Melbourne, Victoria. And I realized, oh my God, is this it? Like, I've got 30 plus years of career time or job time or whatever, working life ahead of me. And is this how I'm going to live my life? And it was the first time that almost like my circumstances forced me to look within, to make a decision, or start at least learning how to make decisions for myself about where I wanted to go. Up until that point in time, I had done everything that a good boy was meant to do. Go to school, pass year 12, get into a university degree, navigate that, pass that, get through that, get a job. At that time, I had just gotten married. Sylvia and I had just been married only for a year or two. We had bought a block of land. We had built a house. Obviously, we'd got a mortgage. So now we've got financial obligations, relationship obligations, and career obligations. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to escape. All you can do is go through. And I'm there walking through Ford Motor Company going, so is this it? Is this like, what? I can't live like this for the rest of my life. I can't do a job like this for the rest of my life. If the career that I am experiencing right now is what my psychology degree has led me to, then, well, my God, this is hell. So it was like life was closing in on every side. And anyway, that was when I first embraced the curiosity of like, what else is out there? And you wouldn't believe it. Like, within days, I'm sitting at my desk, and sitting next to me was this fellow called Ken Anderson. Ken was a wonderful gentleman. I've lost touch with Ken now, but he had the same job as me, but looking after a different part of the plant. Ken was wonderful because he fast-tracked my learning into the real world about how things work, especially in the manufacturing industry. He was vastly more experienced than me in this space where I had just started. And he had just sold his house, and he was passionately talking about how wonderful this agent was that had helped him sell his home. And how this guy was trained in a particular philosophy of how to sell real estate, and it was very, very different, and all this sort of stuff. And this just struck a chord with me for some unbeknown reason. Long and the short of that story was that I got introduced to a real estate office that was local to me at the time, and I progressed. I just decided that I just thought to myself, I remember at the time thinking, well, I know I don't want to be here at Ford Motor Company anymore. I know that I want to move on. I know I want to leave. I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know what I'm going to do. But maybe in the meantime, I can chase this pathway of real estate and just see where it takes me. And so I didn't know, but going into 1997 and 1998, I started working for this particular real estate company, this family-run business, that put me through the ringer to get the job. To get the job, I had to go out and cold call, which I didn't even know those two words even existed in that order at the time. Cold call. What is this cold calling business? And I had to go out and door knock and find leads for the company in order to demonstrate my conviction to what I wanted to do, which was to work with them. And I didn't know this, but at the time there was a mentor that company was using, a training company that company was using, that ended up being my entree, my introduction into personal development, introducing me to the work of Zig Ziglar and people like Jim Rohn, just phenomenal linguists of the human condition. These guys were amazing at communicating the complexities of life in a way that made complete sense. And these guys like Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar were also encouraging through the cassette recordings that I was listening to at the time on how to listen to yourself, on how to be guided by what's in your heart. You know, Khalil Gibran all those years ago said that when you're born, your work is placed in your heart and your job is to find what that is. And so this was the beginning of my relationship in building self-trust. And so I want to share with you another quote from a fellow called Marston. Marston was the guy who created the DISC system, which is a personality profiling system that we'll dedicate some time to at another podcast. But he said, what you do today can improve all of your tomorrows. What you can do today can improve all your tomorrows. And I didn't know at the time that when I started listening to the work of Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar, how those days were going to significantly improve my then tomorrows that became my todays, if that makes any sense at all. And so this was the beginning of me following my soul, the following of the inside of what was going on inside of me. And so I ended up spending about 6-7 years working in real estate until I became the growth rate that I was experiencing started to settle right down, and there was no further opportunities for me to develop myself. There was no opportunity. After 5 or 6 years, I approached my employer and I asked if there was any opportunity to manage a team or to profit share or to be more obligated and more involved financially with the company. But those options at that time just simply didn't exist. So I ended up leaving and taking a sabbatical for a year. And I ended up, on this journey into this world of meditation. Anyway, I'm not going to go through the entire life story of my experiences, but what I want to share with you, and as I've shared in past podcasts, that life is nothing more than a handful of courageous decisions that we've made at the right time that have led us to realizing our own potential, putting ourselves on the right path to fulfill our own destiny, our own destination. And destiny ultimately comes down to, or what destiny actually means, is the ability to become what you're capable of, And so the point of this podcast, the point of me sharing this with you, is that for what I want to encourage you to do is to keep listening to that voice that's within, because that voice that's within is not going to lead you to places that you already know. It's not going to lead you to further comfort. It's certainly not going to lead you to more certainty. It's going to lead you to places where you're going to get to meet aspects of yourself that you didn't know existed. It's called the unknown. And the ultimate thing about emotional fitness and becoming emotionally fit is about continually transforming our relationship with uncertainty. And as we transform that relationship with uncertainty, we get to grow. And growth is a demand from life itself, not from our egos, not from other people. It's life demands that we grow so we can better handle the next level of the game, to be able to embrace the forever expanding responsibilities of our life. I mean, our responsibilities only cease to expand when we're, perhaps 97 years old and we've lived our lives and, we're ready to exit, kind of thing. I know I'm being a little bit whatever with that, but you get my point, is our responsibilities continues to expand. Whether these responsibilities are expanding in our careers or in our relationships or in our families or in our financial obligations or whatever it might be. So the point I want to make is that the most crucial gift that you can give yourself in 2026 is the gift of self-trust. And if you already have some self-trust or a lot of self-trust is to expand that even more. And that's what I'm doing in 2026 is I've made a decision to throw everything I have with full conviction, all chips on the table, to become the best version of me in 2026 and beyond. I don't even know what that even means. I don't even know what that looks like. And this is the thing. This is the thing. There have been so many critical decisions that I've made in my life over the past, career shifting decisions. The decision that Silvana and I made, my wife and I made 4 years ago, to move from Melbourne, where we lived all of our lives, to a brand new part of Australia, for us anyway, in the Sunshine Coast. When I examine, if I use my mind and logic only to look at the decisions I made, to when I started my business, to when I took that sabbatical and went on those meditation experiential retreats, to when we moved from Melbourne to the sunny coast, to when I made several other career changing or defining moment decisions, is that if I was to apply pure logic and no heart and soul into those decisions were as scary as all get up. Because logically, you could see all of the potentialities of the downfall of those decisions, the risk that was taken. Selling our house in Melbourne and burning the ships and coming to Noosa in the Sunshine Coast. Well, there were so many potential go-wrongs with that. Leaving my job at Ford Motor Company and starting a career in real estate, there were so many potential go-wrongs with that. When I started my own business and borrowed $30,000 from the bank so I could survive for the next 5 or 6 months to get myself going, there were so many potential go-wrongs with that. If I was to use my logical mind to assess all those decisions in advance, I would never have made those decisions. And this is the thing. To decide is to cut off from the past. And sometimes what happens is we apply so much logic, we apply so much head stuff, so much intellect into these decisions that we overcomplicate it, we overthink them. And as a result of that, we freeze. As a result of that, we remain stuck. So if you've been stuck in any area of your life, I can tell you that more than likely, one of the reasons why you've been stuck is because you've been overcomplicating it using your head instead of your heart. Our heart is where the emotional compass actually lives. Our emotional compass, as I said earlier, our emotional compass is designed to bring us to the realization of the deepest desires that drive us from within. Now, those deep desires might drive us to a new career or to deepen a career that we've been introduced to, whether it's the coaching space, the helping space, the community space, whatever it is for you. Whether you're into people, whether you're into things, what drives you, what floats your boat, what really excites you and lifts you in the morning. And this is what I wanted to share with you here is the gift of self-trust. Now, I'm going to, if it's all right with you, I'm going to repeat the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross quote, because now I believe it'll make even more sense as we read this. Because let me just repeat her quote. How do geese know when to fly to the sun? Who tells them the seasons? No one does. How do we humans know when it's time to move on? As with the migration of birds, so surely with us, there is a voice within that if only we would listen to it, that tells us certainly when to go forth into the unknown. I think it's about time that we all either begin listening to this voice within or continue to listen to this voice within. I really hope this message is resonating with you deeply. I hope that you're connecting with this deeply. So let 2026 be the year where you allow yourself to embrace the most crucial of all gifts, and that's the gift of self-trust. And I'm going to wrap up this conversation in another minute or two. I just wanted to wrap this up. I wanted to say to you that, it really is about learning how to go within. We live our teenagehood and in our 20s, and for some of us into our 30s, where we're so used to being told what to do by others, or we've outsourced our trust to external powers, whether it's through institutions or whether it's through parents or whether it's through colleagues or whether it's through our employer. The way that I got off the hamster wheel of having a 9 to 5 kind of job is I had to learn how to listen to myself. I had to learn how to dive deep within and just trust that the emotional compass that's within you and me to follow that bloody thing, to just have faith and go in the general direction into the unknown. And as I said, that emotional compass will not will not guide you to what you already know. It will not bring you to a place of comfort or a place of familiarity. It'll bring you to a place where you are completely unfamiliar, where you can expand into versions of yourself that you didn't know existed, to versions of yourself that life is simply demanding from you. So I hope that's making sense. Hey, listen, if this message and other episodes that you've been listening to profoundly, genuinely resonate with you, then just click the subscribe button. By clicking the subscribe button, it means that we will be in touch with you when we're running our next events. Now, as of the time of this recording, I can tell you that on February 24, 25, 26, we are launching for the first time in 2026 our emotional fitness coaching accreditation program. I am so excited about this. We are launching for the first time to Canada, North America, Australia, of course, and New Zealand. And for those of you who've been following my work and whose compass is asking more of you in terms of gaining more skills in how you can impact deeply, profoundly, with great meaning those around you, this is something you might want to consider. So if you subscribe, you'll get notifications when we actually will be running these live events in February. As I said, it is February 24, 25, 26, but the details of the timing and everything will come your way. So if this is resonating with you, I can't wait to meet you there. It's going to be a fun week where we get to begin this new journey into 2026 with people who want to join a movement of people who trust and follow with great faith their own inner compass, their own emotional compass that is designed to lead us all to the unfamiliar territory that we all need in order to grow and become the next version of us. So, hey, thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. All my best wishes for 2026. If you're on holiday, having a break, enjoy the time. We're actually, as of the time of this recording, in the next couple of hours, we're about to head off on a road trip and meet my beautiful best friend and his family and his sons and spend some high quality time together out in the on a beautiful coastline in New South Wales. Can't wait. So, hey, all the very best, and look forward to connecting with you again very soon, because look out for episode 112, which will come out in January. But this one here, of course, is episode 111. I appreciate your time. And I hope that what we've shared here, what I've shared with you here as the most crucial gift to give yourself in 2026 is the gift of self-trust. And as I said, if you've already got levels of self-trust within, there's many more levels to go. It's forever expanding. We never arrive at a point where we've completely trusted ourselves. There is always aspects of life that will challenge our abilities and challenge our conviction to continue to trust ourselves. So thank you so much. Look forward to connecting with you in the new year, and all my best. Bye for now. I trust you enjoyed this latest episode of the Insights Podcast and received great value. Please remember to subscribe and share your reviews, and I'll see you again very soon.